Good morning, my outstanding friends. This is going to be a trip into giant land. Now, today we're going to be doing footprints of the gods. Now, that looks like a footprint to me. Now, some people say, oh, they just put in the little lakes and it's just nothing. Well, maybe. But I look at the details, and we are going to look at the details in a moment. And then, of course, you have another big footprint like this over in Nigeria. It seems to be pretty obvious to me. Now, I could be wrong, so we'll look at it. But look, that's a town over here, and this is the footprint. These were exceptionally large creatures. Now, and that, of course, you make of that what you will. I have already made of it what I will. Now, I have a bunch of little details to go over, and I have some feet actually from different species. They're not the same as us. I call them no toes. And they have toes, but they're built deep inside. This has eroded, and you can see, but these were all attached before. Just basically like this, I believe. All right, this is a no-toe, and the toes are just built right in. They're not. That's not a shoe. Now, we're going to get into this. We have to get into it deep. We've got to really dig into this. Now, I don't know how long this particular episode is going to last. I don't have a whole lot of time. So I'm going to at least give you the highlights. And these people are sending me things from all over the world. As a matter of fact, I just got this morning. Where is it? This one here. And this is from Patricia Rosa down in Brazil. And she went searching because I was making all these claims, and people are doing the 15-minute challenge. You want to see something that'll blow your mind? This is just out. This blew my mind, I can tell you that. This was Tish Egerton. All right, she's out in Missouri. And I gave her the 15-minute challenge. I said, you go out in 15 minutes and see if you can find, and if you can't find a mud fossil in 15 minutes, I'm going to be flabbergasted. She went out in less than 15 minutes. She walks up and finds these feet, a bunch of them, not just this one. And then it's a new species. You see this? This is the normal heel like we have, and the strap that comes up, and the cradle, and the tibia that comes down. But these are springs. They're not what we have in our feet. In our feet are bones like this. It's totally, absolutely, way, way, way different. Now, let me get set up here, and we'll go through these. But she went out in 15 minutes. And guess where she found them? Right there. She picked it up off the ground. That's where that footprint was. These are bone shrapnel I can see around here, little bits and pieces of bone. See it? You see, when you see these colors like that, normally that indicates to me that's a bone degrading. And that's where she just picked these, and she got a whole batch of them. So let's get into this, and I'm going to show you the giant ones, because they were giant, they were small, they were medium sized, they're all kind of different sizes. Okay, my friends, let's talk about the footprints of the gods. Now, you can see that appears to me to be a footprint. You can actually see some almost like the toe-ish spots, and of course the heel is back here, and it's pretty deep in the ground. That is a town. Now, this is over in Nigeria. I found this about, well, I don't know, 10 years ago or so on Google, and ever since then I've been searching Google for all kinds of things. Now, I have giants, but certainly nothing like this. Although I do have this right here, which is a giant hair follicle. And that's a hair follicle. And that could be from a giant, it's going to be a gigantic giant. And here's what a hair follicle looks like. All right, here it is right here. It's the same thing. It's identical. Now this one here is, I think it's a little over 2 inches wide. Yeah, whoops. Figure 2 inches. 2 inches wide. Now, that is the erector pili muscle. That is exactly how a muscle attaches. It's got a dead center spot, and then it wraps around it to fuse into this. And what happens is this contracts to make your hair stand on end. Now, that right there is the sebaceous gland. It's right there. Now this is, I think all hairs are the same. I don't know. I really don't know, to be honest with you. I am not a hair specialist, but I can tell you what. This is a root ball from a hair. And there's the hair shaft. Now this has a flat side on the hair. I'm told that that means it's a curly-haired person. Now, you see this is completely transitioned, 100% transitioned, almost virtually all the same material. All right, even the blood vessels, the vein and artery, normally those turn black and red. They're exactly the same color as everything else here. So this is kind of an exceptional preservation. Normally they don't turn completely like that way. The only reason you see this is because of the membranes that surround these. And of course you see this because it's like a bag of fluids. This was like the oiler that oils the hair. And then of course there's the hair. It goes up and comes right up and goes up. So this would be fairly good size. Now this is 2 inches wide. You can do the math. I tried to figure it out, and I have no idea. I would go with a half a mile maybe. I don't know. That's just a wild guess. If it was a person, how tall it would be, who knows? It certainly wouldn't be as big as, I don't think, these ones that I'm showing you here, like this thing here. That thing there is pretty big. But I don't know. I really don't know. And then, of course, there's this one here. Now, I'm going to show you some details on this one in a second. But let me show you something else first. Now, this is another one. Somebody sent me this, and it sure looks like something crushed down in there. You see all of this wrinkly stuff like it was pushed down. And it looks like there was some toes sticking out of there or something. The goo came between the toes or something. I don't know. This is called Puno Lake Bed in Peru. If that's a footprint, je ne sais pas, I do not know. This, I can't see how that's not a footprint. I can't imagine any other way that got there. So I'm going to close that case on this one. And I also, as a matter of fact, this one here had some kids with them. I think they were playing in the mud, and the father came along or whoever said, "Get out of that mud, you little brats." And they're all in the mud, and they pulled them out of there. That's all I could think. Now this one here is another pretty good sized foot. If it's a foot. Is it a foot? I don't know. So what do? Well, I think about it. And what do I think about? Well, I think about the impression of the foot. If he was stepping hard and he was twisted this way, these would go a little deeper. This would go a little deeper. This would be up a little bit. And this would be up a little bit, which happens to be precisely what we see. All right, this is not deep in the ground as even the little toes. So the guy who was walking pigeon-toed or whatever, or he was running and this side went deeper than this side. Because you can see this is up higher and then it slopes down in. And the same thing here, this is up much higher than this. So I would say if it was a footprint, I don't see how, I could see there were people, playing around in here. I don't know what they're doing. But this is down in Brazil. I believe this is in Brazil. It got sent to me by a friend this morning, Patricia Rosa. And she's in Brazil. I believe this is where it is. She's been searching around for things that she can understand in her area, and I was pretty impressed with this. So I'm saying that this as a foot. Now, assume this had toes, which it does not. These don't have toes in them. There's no toes showing up. But let's say that did, and he hit this way. All right, this wouldn't be so deep in the ground as this. This wouldn't be so deep in the ground as this. It's exactly what we see. That's all I can assume from that. And if you have some different interpretation, well, as I say, God bless you. Hold on a second. All right, I think I showed you this, but as you can see, all of this red stuff around here is eroded flesh, basically. This, I can't see any other option other than it's a foot. I mean, what can we say? There's a bone coming up, and there's the foot. Now, you see this cavity in the front here? This could be a modern style foot. I'm trying to figure it out. This is the anatomy we have here. Now it comes down to about here, And then you see that big open circle in the center of the foot. Is that what we would see if we could look this way? I don't know. I'm not sure. But this is what a modern foot looks like. Now you see all these bones? There's a heel bone here. You really don't see it too well because it's covered up by a tendon. All right, you can't see the tendon, but the tendon wraps right around here. Tendon has a different look to it. You see how faint this is? All right, now let's go look at what a real tendon looks like. All right, in a body of a creature. Here it is right here. You see this? This is what that heel bone looked like. Remember, it came out here. It didn't look anything like this in the X-ray because you're missing all the tendon. You don't see the tendon. Now, it does have this little circular looking thing in the front. Maybe that's the same as what we're seeing in that gigantic one out in the desert there. And I'm not sure where that was. Somebody just sent it to me. And that was years ago, so it wasn't CGI or anything like that. Or AI. They're doing some crazy stuff now, trying to destroy truth with this AI. They're making all kinds of things up now. So I'm hesitant to show things that are sent to me now because they could be AI. I don't know. People are just trying to mess with reality, trying to destroy truth. Those people are a disgrace to humanity. Now, what are we looking at here? That's the new no-toe that Tish Egerton found. Now, this one here is mine, and that's also a no-toe. That's this one right here. Now, and this is one of Tish's. And you see how it has that chunk missing here and they have this chunk missing here? That's the fibula. You have a tibia that comes down. You see that round circle right there? That's where the tibia sits. Same as right here. That's where the tibia sits. And then on next to it is the fibula, which attaches to it so your foot can do all kind of little gyrations. And that just falls off because it's basically almost not attached. It's glued to the side of the foot, basically, with some ligaments. Now, this is what I want you to look at. Look at that ball. Look at this strap. Look really careful. That strap runs up to this bone. And why would that strap run up to that bone? Well, I can tell you why. It's all sort of held together with springy tendons. Tendons are like under tension. They're just like a rubber band. That's like a rubber band holding this up to that tibia bone. If you cut this, she'd fall apart, and they will. And they are a disaster when they break because it creates a wrinkle zone, no more tension, and you fall apart, basically, if you don't have your tendons. Now, this is where that tendon is right here, and that's that ball. Now, we're going to look at this really carefully, closely, and I'm going to tell you about these springs. Because all I get was from these people that say, oh, I understand everything about fossils, I know everything about rocks, all this stuff. They send back within 15 seconds. Oh, those are just little, I forget what they call them, little sea creature things, little round-looking sea creatures. I said, no, did you see the heel bone? No, forget about it. All done, case closed. Now let me talk to you intelligently about this. Not what I get from the experts. I sent these pictures to a guy, I think it's a Florida museum or Florida Institute, something. They claim they can find any kind of fossils and name them right away and all this stuff. I sent them this. He said, that's just limestone that weathers like that. They can have any patterns in them. I said, you got to be kidding me. And that was it. 10 minutes, it was done. And I mean, literally, by the time I sent it back, 10 minutes, it was over. All right, I want you to look carefully. Clear your mind. This is where the toes would be in the front. There are literally no toes in them. It's a big block, basically. However, there are little sausage-looking things that stick out. You could call them toes if you want. And they can bend up a little bit. So there's a little bit of spring action here where the toes are inside. Like, in other words, here. You see this wrinkle here? That thing could move up and down. That's the wrinkle of the front being able to move up and down as you step. Now inside, I think there's springs. I think there's springs in here, just like, it may not be even the same as this, or they may be the same, I don't know. But I don't think there's bones in here, although I don't know. I just don't know. This one, there is no bones. these little springy things are supposed to, they call them, oh, those are just sea creatures. Forget about it, it's nothing. I said, what about this? Oh, that means nothing, it just happened. No, it doesn't. I showed you a second ago the heel bone. There it is right there. And the strap that comes up is right there. And it would attach to the bone that would sit in this cradle that would allow the foot to rock. It's very simple to understand. That right there is the wrinkle zone. Remember I talked about a wrinkle zone? See how this is nice and flat, then all of it comes this gummy look to it? That's because that was under tension. And when they get cut, ting, you get this wrinkle zone. If you look at the top of Devil's Tower, which is a foot, you also have a wrinkle zone because it's a tendon as well. Anytime you cut a tendon, you get a wrinkle zone. If it's a long, fibrous, heavy-duty tendon, that's what you're going to get. Now, what about these little sea creatures here? They're not sea creatures. Those are springs. So let's talk about how this guy walks. Okay, so here he is standing there. Everything's fine. That's unloaded. That's unloaded. That's just holding your leg. And your toes are out here, and they're just sort of laying there. Now, the guy steps forward. Boom. His toes go up this way. So this, first of all, the toes have a little bit of give. You can see there's a little give here. So that would come up, let's say, a half an inch or so, whatever. It would hit the limit of its throw, and then it would start to engage this. So now everything's got to move up. When everything moves up, it moves up against this pin. So the pin holds everything. So now this has to spin on the pin. So your toes are moving up. This whole thing spins. This right here, you see this? That's latched into this little latch right here. Now I'm going to come up close to this so you can see it in its magnificence. All right, you saw, well, you know, maybe back it off here. That's a little better. Okay, now, so what did you see? You saw the toes come up. You saw this thing engage and start to twist on the pin. You see this would be pulled along with the twisted piece. This little latch here, and it appears to be there's a wire. And that wire seems to come up around and attach up to here. Now some of it is eroded away. It's like it's missing some of it, and some of it is rotted away. But I believe that is a wire coming out of this. It's so similar, it's just hard to believe it could be just nothing. So that wire comes around and snakes up to that. So what does this mean? The guy steps, it loads this spring. This pulls in, so that wire has to pull in. So this is another spring. It pulls in into this cavity. There's a cavity all built in there for it to pocket right into. So this comes up, this pulls in, this goes into the pocket. So you got a spring on the toes, a spring here, loading up, and then another spring here engaging. So you got a double spring and toes. So then when he steps back down, everything just flattens out again. So it's a pretty cool device. I mean, it really is kind of interesting. And see, there's another latch right here. You see this one? It's the same sort of parts. And I think Tish sent me this other thing, which is like almost a box of spare parts. I'm not kidding you. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. Somebody was doing something out here with biology, because this is biology. No question whatsoever, it's biology. Secondly, there's no question whatsoever, that is the heel, and that is the strap, and these are not like our feet. All right, this is not either. This is not either. And this even looks like it has a sole built into it. You see that? But that's not a sole that was like from a shoe. Look at it, it's all wrapped together, and it comes together. All of this is like hide, and it comes together and it bolts right in the front, like it's hold all that fabric together. It's very interesting stuff. All right. As I was showing, and I was out of focus, this is the same as our feet, basically, except there's no toes in it. And in the front, all of this fabric, this heavy-duty hide, comes right together and it bolts right in together. It's like a plug holding it on. It all comes wrapping around here. You see it coming wrapping around? And under the microscope, you can see this is exactly identical to the leather on my belt. And there's the bottom. There's no toes in here, but this flaps around. And this is all, anytime you see this is a latch holding all of that fabric to the bottom of the foot. All right, so, and which this one here, I don't think is the same as Tish's, but I don't know. I have another one here that's just absolutely unbelievable. I call it the Oompa Loompa, just gigantic thing. And it looks like a clown foot. I'll show you that one. Well, I'll show you now. All right, look at this. This is a foot. And that's just a gigantic balloon front. This over here is the tibia. I mean the fibula. Right here. And if I put some water on it, you'll see that circle right there was where it attached, and I will. This was laying down where it died flat like this. Almost every one of them has a very flat side because they died in the flood flat. This was a giant. It's some kind of a monster. It wasn't. This is not like a normal human. It has the underside, you know, it has the arch of the foot and everything the same. And that right there, I'm going to put a little water on there, and we'll see if we can see where the attachment, it's right there, would have been for the bone, for the fibula. Right here. They all have that same sort of attachment. And there's one little spot that there's a little piece of tendon that holds it on, and then just break right off. All right, you got to get it just in the right light to see that attachment. But there it is right there. I can see it quite clearly. You may not be able to. I'm going to move it around here and there so you can get a good different shots at it. You may have to stop the video to actually see it. But there it is right there. And there would have been a bone right there like that. All right, attached right to that spot. And then the other bone would have been right back here. Oop. Right back here. And it would sit in this cradle. You see this? That's a little bit of a cradle. It would sit in there, and that's what holds it in. Mine has a cradle too. Hold on. Oh, where'd it go? Ugh. You see? Same thing. There's a little cradle for mine. And that's where the bone sat right for mine, and the cradle is there. Now this one, you can't even see where it attached. I really can't find it. I never really looked very hard for it, but it's right in here somewhere. The same as this thing has the latch here. This one's got one somewhere. I could probably find it if I look hard enough, because it's there. All right, and this was that's the cradle, and that's that bone. That's where the bone would have sat. All right, so there's at least two different sets of no-toes that are completely different right here I have in my shop. You see, this is a little better now. That's where it attached right there to hold this bone into this foot. And that's a monster, isn't it? Look at that thing. I mean, look at this. This is just, I think Tish found this. I'm not sure who sent me this, to be perfectly honest with you. But this looks like a spare parts kit to something. I don't know what. Look at all these little things. They look like devices of some sort, where they have like screws and threads, and I don't know what they are. But it's very strange looking. I can tell you that. I've looked at it pretty close, and these are some strange looking things. Look at this. The hell is that? And this isn't like modern. I don't think this is modern stuff. I got to be honest with you. I just have no idea what I'm looking at. None. Zero. If you can make heads or tails of it, well, like I say, God bless you. But it looks to me, you see this here? These little balls look like little tendinenthesis balls. This could have been some kind of a sophisticated little device, and this is where it anchored into the body. Nobody can make sense of that that I know of, unless you've got some sense to make of it. I can't. But I do see what appears to me to be some kind of biological anchoring part, because that's what you see where tendons anchor in. You have these balls, they lock in, and this appears to be some kind of you know, fleshy stuff. It's just, it's not like just they threw this stuff in the mud and it was just little bits and pieces. I think it might be some kind of a device. I have no idea. At this point, lost. All right, so you saw my hair follicle. That's a pretty good sized guy, and this shows the erector muscle, and this shows the sebaceous gland. I did it 2 at a time. Now, that's the biggest thing that I can present here that is pretty obviously true. Now, I also have this fingertip, and this is versus, well, it's no question whatsoever because it's been DNA tested, and that's the fingernail. It's 3 feet long from here to the very tip of the front. This 3 feet long fingertip, that's about 160 to 180 foot tall guy approximately. Now this little pad here is where it bumps against your other bone, and these are the vein and artery. Now you cannot get blood from the outside of your fingertips. They're just like a rubber glove. So I had to break this off right here. This is the fingernail. It was right next to the fingernail. So I got a little bit of skin, and then it goes right into the fingerprint, and I got some of that. So I got a taste of skin, and then right into the fingerprint. Same thing that happens on your hand. And here it is right here. If I can find it. There it is. All right, this is, I call this grip skin. This is the very dense skin that's on your hands, and it's just tough as hell. And there's no blood in it to speak of. But under here, it's just saturated with blood, saturated. So what I did was I smacked the big fingertip there with a 5-pound sledge. Boom! This just popped right off like a scab, just like that. Came right off like that. And it's glued underneath to the meat, and it just... Now, these are the finger ridges. That's a finger ridge. Same thing you have on your fingerprints. These are the fingerprints. Those are the sweat pores, these holes. You see it? Those are the sweat pores. So, and this is the fingernail came down around like this way. And so you got a little taste of skin, and then you get right into your fingerprints immediately. Same as on your hand. And that is exactly identical to a human finger. There's no difference whatsoever. 0. Identical. So, and it was tested, DNA tested human. PCR DNA test I had done in 2015. I had 3 of them done. I had 1 of them done on this right here, which came back human DNA, same size as us. This one had blood came out of it. I didn't see any reason to get that one DNA tested. The blood just ran out of it. Blood. This one I drilled a little hole in there and took out the red, it's like almost like rusty looking debris basically that comes out of there. It's like sandy looking stuff, but it's blood. It's the blood that comes right out of there. It's reddish looking blood. It's just dried up, that's all. So I took it out of there, and I did the same thing with the giant fingertip. I went down inside to get some blood out of there. Same thing, you drill right in there and you just drill it out and you put it in a little glass bag and you send it off. And of course you got to be careful when you do it, you don't contaminate it. But mine was dense, excellent quality, all negative controls were negative. He said it was absolutely impossible unless I put my own blood in there to have it have that concentration, which I obviously didn't. And they're here, they can be tested, and anybody's welcome to do it if you want to spend the money. It wasn't cheap. And nobody wants to do it anymore because they get assaulted for doing that kind of work. I'm not kidding you. Now here's where I got the blood. Look at this, is saturated with blood. Fingertips are saturated. And the other hand I have here, I don't know if I showed you or not. Where is it? This one here. Same thing here. That's the left hand. That's the cleave between the 2 parts of your hand, the pads. That's the tendon that runs down. The little finger runs off this way, and the thumb goes that way. So it's a left human hand. It's been DNA tested, and I have parts CAT scanned. Plus, I found the toe about 70 feet down from where I found the hand. And the toe is pretty good size too. As a matter of fact, I suppose I should show it to you, so I will. But I found the fingertips, which I sent off and had CAT scanned, and I also found a knuckle. Now at first I thought maybe this wasn't a product of the flood, but then when I found the knuckle, there was no question, because the knuckle is flat as a pancake on the back, just like all of them from the flood. And I suppose I should, well, let me show you the knuckle first, and we'll go from there. All right, this is the knuckle. You see how flat that is? That's why I know this was in the flood. Now, this is the bone ball. That's the bone ball that's on your knuckle. That's exactly right there. This is exactly right there. And they died laying flat like this, and the back is flat as a pancake. Now, I know this because this side here shows still the tendon and the muscle. That's the tendon. You see this? This is exactly like my knuckle right there. There's a tendon running here that runs up so that I can do this. There's another one on the other side if it was a center one. If it wasn't, you got, like this side only has one, I think. The other ones all have two. One runs down here and the other one. Now, I can tell that is the tendon. You can see it very, very easily if you look and you know how to look at things. That is, oh, let me get a little bit of water. This spot right here. You see that? You should be able to see that. That little dot right there is where the tendon comes down. That's where it engages right there. This stuff here is the muscle. That's the muscle that runs over the bone. You see that weave of that muscle? On the other side, the muscle's gone. This side is completely eroded. It's absolutely fabulous how this thing eroded so I can see. This is down to where it's the tendon and flesh underneath. But the muscle is gone and all you have is the bone. And here's the calcification part of the bone. Inside of bones, it's a whole different story than the outside. The outside is just like a shell, and the inside is like marrow and some really gooey, heavy-duty stuff. And now you see how flat that is? That's exactly what happened. And that is this guy's finger that was heading out. All right, this is the downside. This is the side, and the bone is broken off. That's the bone right there. It's hard to see, but that's the bone that would have come down here. So this died, again, same situation. And I have the fingertips. The fingertips were CAT scanned. It's a DNA tested. It's no question what it is. It's a human hand. It's about, I think it was 3 or 4 feet wide. I can't remember now. This goes back, again, 12, 15 years almost. All right, as I said, I found a toe for this too. This hand had the knuckle, the fingerprints, no, not fingerprints, but this fingertip was from this hand and was also that knuckle I just showed you. I had this CAT scan, DNA tested, the whole 9 yards. It's human. Now this is the bottom of a fingertip. You see how it rolls like this? Just like yours. The fingernail was right here, and it shows up in the CAT scan where the fingernail was. And the tendons show up, all that, the bone and all that. Now, I'm walking the dog. This has got to be almost 10 years later. I'm walking the dog and I find this about 70 feet down from where I found the hand and so forth. This is the toe. This is I think it's probably the big toe. And that's, you see that right there, these two? You got to take your time to understand what you're looking at. These are two big heavy-duty tendons. And the other side is the bottom, which rolls just like that one rolls. Oh, man, this sucker's heavy. You see it? There's the bottom of the toe. See it? No, it's completely transitioned, yes, absolutely. But I'm going to put a little water on there, and maybe you'll be able to see back in here. And we could look at it under a microscope, and you know, there's not much you're going to see other than its transition primarily into a mud. This is what's called mudstone. And the same thing with this. This one over here is mudstone. The same thing with this. I think this might be from this here too. I don't know. I have no idea. I got it everywhere. My property is saturated with these creatures. Now, coming down to this toe, first of all, you have a tendon. It locks in here. The same thing as this one. You see how the tendons lock in? They lock just right in like that, so that you can move these things around. The same thing with the toe. It has a little latch right here. I hope you can see what I'm doing here. I guess you can. Now, what about at the end? What comes in from the end? Let's put something under here so that we can look at this. All right, now. Ooh. I got to be careful. I destroyed my screens. These things slide into them. All right, now we're going to look at this in some detail. Let me put some water on there. Well, this is going to be a little hard to see much that's important, but this side is where there was a big tendon, and this side right here is where there was a big tendon running up to, this is a toe obviously, but they work basically the same way. Now, don't forget, this is a bone all by itself, separates out. These, just like this was a bone all by itself, separates from the other ones. They're not connected in any other way other than tendons. So they just disassemble from the other parts. I believe this right here is the tendon, and this right here is that tendon. You see a little dot in the center, a little dot in the center. All right, we could probably find some more things about this, but I don't see any need to. I'm sure this came from this same guy here. It's basically identical decomposition, and again, laying right on top of the ground. I just walked over and picked it up. This stuff here came from a little tiny bit of excavation, this one and the hand, this hand, I believe, because they dug just a very shallow excavation, I don't know, 3 feet maybe, and moved all this stuff down, and I was digging through it and I found all this. So I think this was right where they got it. This was just laying down 70, 80 feet in the back away from where the hand was. So I'm figuring the guy probably was about that big, somewhere in that area. And oh, once again, there's the tendons and there's the toe. And he would have been rocking that toe, walking, rocking. And you don't want to be in his way when he comes rocking and walking, because you're going to be squished. This is a DNA test I had done back in 2015. 3 different specimens, 3 mud fossil samples. Now, he didn't take this stuff out. I took the stuff out and sent it to him. And this was the 36-inch tip along, and the mud tip. The mud tip is this thing here. Now, they all came out perfect, you know, very good quality, except the mud tip wasn't as good as the other 2. See, they did all this stuff, and this was all positive for mitochondrial DNA, negative for the negative controls. And this was a PCR test. This was not the cheapie. This was the big time job. Now, here it was, excellent quality DNA sequence obtained from a 36-inch tip. The big one that I showed you, I had the fingerprints. And the lung, they were the excellent top-end quality. It's basically like raw blood. And they sent these off to be tested. You know, well, they extracted the DNA out of it and came up with all these little CTAG jobbers, and then they sent that off, and what it came back was Homo sapien mitochondrial cytochrome B and mitochondrial D loop. And I said, are these modern humans? He said, yes, they're modern human DNA sequences. Now, if they had other DNA sequences, I don't know. I just wanted him to test to see if he could prove one way or other whether these were human. And he said he could, and he would look for the specific set of chromosomes, and that's what he did. So they're human. Now, if I don't know, maybe there's some other aspect to them, I have no idea, but all 3 of them came back human. And these are some serious, look at the size of that thing. That's his toe. All right, here's the CAT scans from, this is a 2D CAT scan. I had the 3D done as well. 2D is fabulous because I could see the fingernail bed right there. And then on top of that, I can see the tendons on the end, which I talked about having the tendons on the end of this big jobber. Well, you have them on the end of fingers too. All your digits have them. Here it is right here. All right, you see that? That's a tendon. That's a tendon. The same as what this one had, a tendon and a tendon, both on both sides, just like that. But you can't see those. You can see it sort of if you know what you're looking for. And the same thing, you can't see that on here either. You can't see anything here. I broke this piece off so I could get to the bone, because there's the bone. There's the tendon. There's the tendon. You don't see that. You wouldn't know that. Same thing as here. You don't know unless you know what to look for. But in the CAT scan, it shows up very, very clearly. And these were done by Jesse Garant and Associates, the top people in the world. The top people in the world that do CAT scans. And they did 7 CAT scans for us. This is the bone. All right, and again, I talk about this as being a thumb. And the reason I know it's a thumb, and I know it's a right-hand thumb, is because your thumbs have a piece of extra meat that sticks off the side. You see, here's the bone. And the bone comes up and travels up and meets up with this bone. But you got that big chunk of meat hanging off the side. So this is a right-hand thumb. All right, the hand I have is a left-hand hand. It's got a right-hand thumb and a left-hand hand. So all of it's there somewhere. And then I put down the way in the back, I could find this. It's all there in there somewhere, but I don't really care about that. I'm showing everything. I've shown it all so many times. And again, that's where your blood vessel is, and that's the tendon. This side here, identical. There's where your blood vessel is, and there's a tendon. One's black because it's one type of blood, and the other, it shows a different color because it's the other side. You got red blood and you got blue blood. It turns black in the mud fossils. And then you got the bone. All right, so that was that CAT scan. And then, of course, you can see, just barely see the bone because it's turned into mud. That's what happens is they transition. And now, again, this one here transitioned, this hair follicle, I don't know what you'd get in here. You'd see the separation, just like you see here, a little bit of membrane. That's why you see the membrane here, because it's not, membranes are a whole different animal than flesh and bone and stuff. Membranes are, they're forever. Like diamonds are forever. Well, membranes also are forever. What didn't I show you? I think I showed you everything here. Yeah, I think I showed you everything. Yep, I think I did. All right, if you're here in my channel, you probably understand that I am a proponent. All right, if you're here, you certainly have heard of the book of Enoch, which was removed from the biblical accounts because it was just too spectacular. Nobody would believe it. They removed all of these things, the book of Jubilees, the book of Enoch, all of the things that, there's another one here, I'll show you. It says Jesus was 96 miles tall. That one's been removed. Now, what does it say here in the book of Enoch? The translation says, "And they became pregnant, and they bare great giants whose height was 3,000 ells, who consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind." Now, 3,000 ells, they're saying an ell was 18 inches. No, the ancient ell was 45 inches. So they're saying it would have been 4,500 feet. No, they would have been 2.5 miles tall. All right, so they're trying to figure this out and say, oh, maybe you only met 300 ells. Maybe they just didn't know what they're talking about. No, they knew what they're talking about. And here's the one that really blows your mind. Hold on a second. This is another group of ancient, religious people. And what did they say? They said Jesus was, listen to this. Listen to this. All right, Jewish Christians called Appolodorus of Ephesus came to Rome, bringing a book which he said had been received in Parthia by a just man named Ecclesia. According to Ecclesiastes, the book had been revealed by an angel 96 miles tall, 16 miles broad, and 24 miles across the shoulders. His footprints were 14 miles long, 4 miles wide, 2 miles deep, which we just saw some that could fit right into there. The giant angel was the Son of God, who would be Jesus, who was accompanied by his sister, the Holy Ghost, of the same dimensions. She was 96 miles tall too. Alcibiades announced that a new remission of sins had been proclaimed in the 3rd year of Trajan. That's about 100 AD. And he described a baptism which should impart this forgiveness even to the grossest sinners. Well, I suppose you want to do one of those baptisms. All right, this particular book that says Jesus was 96 miles tall came with a lot of baggage that they went after these people. It says, I will show you what evil things that opinion teaches, that you may not be carried away by it. It rejects certain parts of every scripture. Again, it uses portions of the Old Testament and the Gospel, but rejects the apostle altogether. It says that to deny Christ is an indifferent matter. It doesn't matter one way or the other if you accept him or you deny him. And that he who understands will, and under necessity, will deny with his mouth but not in his heart. In other words, they would kill you if you said, I believe in Jesus Christ. So you have to deny it with your mouth, but not in your heart. Your heart will not allow you to deny it, but you may have to deny it with your mouth so that you stay alive. Basically, that's what it means. But it will not deny it in its heart. They produce a certain book which they say fell from heaven, and this is the one that says Jesus was 96 miles tall. They hold that whoever hears and believes this shall receive remissions of their sins, another remission that which Jesus Christ has given. So this was a new remission of sins in like 200 AD or something. After he tried to get them to do it the first time, he came back down. He said, hey, these guys are just not paying attention. Tell them I'm 96 miles tall and I'll step on them if they don't do what they're supposed to. I don't know what, but this book, I haven't read the book, but this is this particular group. And you come seeing all these new groups that I never knew anything about. These are the Ecclesiastites, whatever they are, were an ancient Jewish Christian sect in Lower Mesopotamia. Then the problem of Astorian in the Sassanian Empire that was active between 1 and 400 in the Common Era, which is AD. The members of this sect, which originated in the Transjordan, performed frequent baptisms for purification and had a Gnostic orientation. And I'm going with the Gnostics. I don't see anything wrong with what they were teaching. This is a Gnostic right here. This is this was just discovered in 1945, which is the Gospel of Thomas, who was Jesus's scribe. And he wrote down, these are the secret sayings which the living, walking around, speaking Jesus spoke. And Doubting Thomas, Doubting Thomas wrote them down. And all the things I'm reading here, I can find a lot of them hold water to me, which nobody would ever believe. Nobody would ever believe that the earth was just nothing but a corpse and a carcass, and that's exactly what Jesus says. Number 56, I believe it is. Jesus said, whoever has come to understand the world has found only a corpse, and who has found a corpse is superior to the world. And number 80, he reiterates it. Only he talks about bodies. Jesus said, he who has recognized the world has found bodies, but he who has found bodies is superior to the world. And he's saying who has found the body. Well, I say found bodies, and he who has found the bodies is superior to the world. That's my interpretation. I think Doubting Thomas left off a S. I have no idea. I'm so confused now. All I'm doing is continuously looking. And another one I got yesterday from another friend was about a demon that was allowed to keep 10% of the demons here on earth after God locked all of 90% of them up. And he says, I'll give you 10, and you can do what you want with them. See if you can corrupt mankind. The ones they corrupt, I don't want anyway. So that's what happened. It was Mystera or something. I just looking into it now. Hold on. Yeah, I'm starting to get into this. And again, somebody just sent me this. I have no idea about it. But it's Mastema. Is the demon who appears in the book of Jubilees. Another one they took out of the ancient text because it was another too spectacular. Now, this demon pleads with God to permit the spirits of the dead, the Nephilim, to remain on earth. The spirits of them, the disembodied spirits of them, because they don't die, even though they're dead. There's a disembodied spirit, and he says, can you leave me 10% of them? And God agreed. So he says, he asked God to permit the spirits of the dead, the Nephilim, to remain on earth, so that they can corrupt and lead men astray prior to judgment. The only thing I can take from that is he doesn't want the ones that are going to be able to be corrupted. So if you can corrupt them, and I'll just burn them up at the end. I don't want them. Right? Because there was great wickedness among men. And I understand that because I wasn't the best myself. So, but I never realized this was all factual, and I was indoctrinated, I was mental-sided, I was brainwashed by academia to think this was just ridiculous. You're a crazy person if you believe that. Not only that, we will fail you in your life if you believe this. We'll destroy your life. Well, I don't care about that anymore. My life will start after I die, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, sorry about that little interruption. This is Mastema. Again, he's this demon. And he's talked about in the book of Jubilees, which is what I'm going to be getting into next. Which is the book of Jubilees, which is right here. And Lesser Genesis, it's called. And again, this is apocryphal text, Jewish apocryphal text. 50 chapters, 1,341 verses. And the Ethiopian Orthodox considers this canonical, so they take it as serious, the book of Jubilees. And the same thing with the book of Enoch. The only reason they removed this is because they talked about things that nobody could ever possibly accept, as I have found out today. Even with the evidence I have, the DNA and the CAT scans and the specimens, over and over and over for 15 years, I have not been able to get anybody that controls education or thought to pay one single second of attention to this. So obviously, they didn't want to show all of these spectacular, gigantic creatures back then and have people, they couldn't show them. All they could do was say, yeah, it's all written down, all this stuff existed. Nobody believed it. I wouldn't have believed it either. I never believed it. You couldn't possibly believe it without having the evidence. But now the evidence here, they still don't believe
Magic?
it. Yep. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it here now. But don't forget, this is last words on this. Mastema was a demon. In the book of Jubilees, he pleads with God to permit the spirits of the dead, the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, to remain on earth so that they could corrupt and lead men astray prior to judgment. Because he doesn't want the garbage. He wants the garbage removed. So he figures, well, I'll leave 10% of them down there. They'll dissuade all the garbage, and then I'll burn them up at the end. All right? God condemned all the demons to descend into condemnation, except for a tenth who could remain to destroy humanity's. The ones that could be corrupted, they were going to corrupt, and they have. They've corrupted a hell of a lot of them. And they talk about, look up 2 Peter 2. It talks about the false teachers, and their destruction does not sleep. All right? And this is what I have found. Academia is not in good shape here. If any of this stuff is true, well, I'll tell you, I wouldn't want to be an academic. Okay, speaking of false teachers, I'm after Yale for plagiarism, fraud, and all that stuff. And I think God is too. I love you all. See you later.